Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I dedicated 3 years to proving someone wrong. Yesterday, everything finally came together. Back in 2022, when I was a 21-year-old college graduate, I dated an attorney. He was 27, talked about his legal work, and I became interested in the legal profession through our conversations. After finishing my post-graduation internship, I shared my career plans with him during dinner at a small Italian place downtown. I told him I wanted to work as a paralegal until I was ready to apply for law school. He scoffed and told me I'd be better off as a court clerk. His tone made it clear this wasn't helpful advice. He didn't explain why, but I knew he didn't think I was smart enough. I felt hurt. I was a college graduate with good grades and ambition, being told to aim lower by someone who should support me. At 21, I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I smiled and changed the subject, but his comments stuck with me. A few weeks later, I got my first paralegal job at a small firm. We broke up shortly after. His attitude wasn't just about career advice. He'd correct me in conversations, talk over me at dinner with friends, and question my knowledge on most topics. The last straw was when he explained how a microwave worked, after I mentioned buying a new one. I have a science degree. After the breakup, I threw myself into my paralegal work. I wasn't just learning for law school anymore, I was proving a point. Every case, every brief, every late night of research fueled me. My supervisor noticed my work. She asked if I had considered taking the law school admission test and mentioned I had potential. I told her I'd been thinking about it. She said I should try because I had the analytical mind for it. That encouragement was what I needed. I spent the next year working as a paralegal while studying for the LSAT. When not working or studying, I researched law schools. The paralegal job exposed me to real cases that textbooks never covered. I helped on a housing discrimination suit that opened my eyes to systemic injustice. That case convinced me I wanted to practice civil rights law. My ex specialized in corporate law and often dismissed public interest work as lawyer charity cases. That attitude revealed our fundamentally different values. During my second year as a paralegal, I joined a LSAT study group with 4 other aspiring lawyers. We met 3 times weekly for 6 months straight. One member worked as a public defender's assistant and shared horrifying stories about inadequate representation for poor clients. Another participant had survived domestic violence and wanted to help others escape similar situations. Their determination pushed me through the grueling study sessions. Last fall, I took the LSAT. When the results came, I scored in the 98th percentile. I read the email 3 times to be sure. My study group celebrated with me over dinner. They became my support system when applying to schools, reviewing my personal statement about overcoming self-doubt and finding purpose in advocacy work. I applied to several top law schools, including University of California, Berkeley Law, which ranked about 90 spots higher than my ex's school. During this time, I found out my ex had been looking at my LinkedIn profile multiple times. I blocked him to avoid extra stress during application season. But the story gets better. His law firm partner contacted me about a paralegal position, unaware of our history. During the preliminary phone call, she mentioned my ex had actually recommended against interviewing me. She ignored his advice after seeing my experience. I politely declined the interview but asked why he'd discouraged her. She hesitated, then admitted he'd called me academically unsuited for serious legal work. That comment, made a full 2 years after our breakup, confirmed he hadn't simply made an offhand remark during our relationship. He actively tried to undermine my career. Yesterday, I got my acceptance letter from Berkeley Law with a partial scholarship. I accepted right away. The scholarship covers 70% of my tuition, awarded specifically for my civil rights advocacy proposal. Berkeley's public interest law program ranks among the nation's best. Today, I unblocked him on LinkedIn and updated my profile with my Berkeley acceptance. It reminded me of that scene from Legally Blonde, where Ellie gets the prestigious internship over her ex. I thought about how he once said I should be a court clerk, and now I was going to Berkeley Law. An hour after updating my profile, my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn connection request from him. Attached was a message congratulating me and suggesting catching up sometime. I declined the request and sent a brief response. No thanks, I'm focusing on people who believe in me. Two of my study group friends also got into Berkeley. We've already signed a lease for an apartment 10 minutes from campus. Knowing he'll see this is better than any revenge I planned. I'm not becoming a paralegal after all. I'm becoming a lawyer at one of the top law schools in the country. 3 years ago, his dismissal of my abilities hurt me. Today, it was fuel that helped me succeed. This 3-year journey led me exactly where I was meant to be. When classes start in August, I'll be joining Berkeley's Housing Rights Clinic to help fight evictions. The same type of work he once dismissed as lawyer charity will become my specialty. I've lived in my quiet neighborhood for about 5 years now. It's peaceful, well-kept lawns, friendly neighbors, the occasional block party. I get along with everyone, or at least I thought I did until last month's mailbox incident. I work from home. Some days I'm up at dawn, others I'm working until 2 a.m. This means my car might be in the driveway when most people are at their jobs. Also, I'm not very obsessive about lawn maintenance. I keep it decent, mow regularly, pull the obvious weeds, but I'm not out there with scissors trimming around each blade of grass. This was deeply offensive to my neighbor across the street. It started with finding notes in my mailbox. Not through the postal service, she was physically walking up and placing them inside. The first one I found about 3 months ago. Your car has been parked in your driveway for 3 days straight. This is unsightly for the neighborhood. Please use your garage. I was confused. My driveway is for parking cars, and my garage is full of home gym equipment. I shrugged it off as weird but harmless. The next week, another note appeared. Your lawn is 0.5 inches taller than neighborhood standards. This brings down property values. Please address immediately. The notes kept coming, each more ridiculous than the last. My garbage bin stayed out 12 hours after collection. My garden gnome was tacky and inappropriate. I had Amazon deliver a package on a Sunday. I ignored them at first, but they became more frequent and aggressive. After about the 10th note, I decided to say something. I caught her one afternoon as she was stuffing another complaint into my mailbox. I asked her to stop putting notes in my mailbox. She said she was just trying to help me understand neighborhood expectations. I told her it was illegal to use someone's mailbox if you're not a postal worker, and mentioned that I wasn't breaking any homeowner association rules or city laws. Her face turned red. She said she felt insulted and was just trying to maintain standards in the neighborhood. I told her again not to put anything else in my mailbox, suggesting she could knock on my door if she had issues. 2 days later, I heard something outside. I looked through my window and saw her walking up to my mailbox with another folded paper. I opened my door and stepped onto my porch. I asked her again not to put anything in my mailbox. She ignored me and said I needed to see her complaint about my uneven hedges and how my porch light was on all night. I told her it was my business, not hers, and repeated that it was against federal law to put non-mail items in mailboxes. She stuffed the paper inside anyway, gave me a smug look, and started walking back toward her house. I sighed and went to retrieve the note. I called after her, warning her not to do this again. That's when she snapped. She walked into her garage and came back out holding what looked like a hammer or mallet. Before I could process what was happening, she walked straight to my mailbox and started swinging. Bang, bang, bang. The metal dented with each hit. The door broke off. The post started wobbling. I stood there in shock for about 5 seconds before my brain kicked in. I pulled out my phone and started recording. She was too caught up in her destruction to notice me filming her demolishing my property. I shouted at her to stop asking what she was doing. She yelled back that if she couldn't use the mailbox, then nobody could. Each word came with another swing of the hammer. My once decent mailbox now looked like it had been hit by a truck. I didn't approach her, she had a hammer, but I kept recording while I called the police with my landline. I told the dispatcher that my neighbor was destroying my mailbox with a hammer, that I was filming it, and asked for someone to be sent. The dispatcher told me officers would arrive shortly. Meanwhile, my neighbor had finally stopped. She stood there panting, looking at her work. She said now I wouldn't have to worry about her putting notes in my mailbox. I told her I had called the police and had the whole incident on video. Her smug expression changed. For a second, I thought she might apologize or try to explain herself. Instead, she gripped the hammer tighter and asked how I could call the police on her after all she had done for the neighborhood. The first police car pulled up about 10 minutes later. I showed the officer the video and explained what happened. He looked at my destroyed mailbox, then at my neighbor, who was now standing in her driveway, pretending to garden, as if nothing had happened. The officer walked to her and said he needed to speak with her. When he got closer, she started yelling about how I was the problem, saying I was ruining the neighborhood with my eyesore of a property. The officer asked for her side of the story. That's when she made her biggest mistake. When he tried to get her to calm down, she swung her arm at him, hitting his shoulder. Everything happened quickly after that. More police cars arrived. Officers went to her property. There was a lot of shouting, mostly from her, and then they were leading her to a police car in handcuffs. I later learned she was charged with destruction of property, assault on a police officer, and illegal use of a mailbox. Apparently, that's a federal offense since mailboxes are considered federal property. I had to replace my mailbox, but her homeowner's insurance eventually covered it. She was ordered to pay restitution, complete community service, and attend anger management classes. She put her house up for sale 3 months later. The new neighbors are nice. They brought me cookies when they moved in and have never commented on the height of my grass. I'm a 24-year-old woman who's always loved animals. My family never had pets because my dad was allergic to pretty much everything with fur. I promised myself that once I had my own place, I'd adopt a dog. Last year, I finally got settled into my career and found a pet-friendly apartment complex. It was time. I spent weeks researching local shelters, and that's when I found him, this sweet golden retriever who had been abandoned by his previous owners when they moved overseas. He was already 2 years old, house-trained, and had the gentlest eyes I'd ever seen. The moment we met, I knew he was meant to be mine. The shelter staff told me how he'd been waiting for months while puppies got adopted around him. That broke my heart, but I was going to change his story. The past year with my dog has been amazing. He quickly became my best friend. I work from home most days, so we're rarely apart. Every morning we go for a run in the park, and in the evenings we take a leisurely stroll around the neighborhood. He's incredibly well behaved, never barks unnecessarily, sits patiently when meeting new people, and is great with children. Everyone in my apartment complex adores him. The elderly couple downstairs always keeps treats for him, and the maintenance guy jokes that my dog should be the official building mascot. Even the property manager, who's pretty strict about everything, makes an exception to pet him whenever we cross paths. About a month ago, someone new moved into the building. She looked to be in her early 20s, always dressed in trendy clothes, and had this bubbly personality that made her seem approachable. We ran into each other in the elevator a few times, and she seemed nice enough. She talked a lot about how she'd just graduated college and was starting her first real job. During one elevator ride, she met my dog and commented on how cute he was. I thanked her, and that was that. Nothing weird or unusual about our interactions. Until last week, I was working on a deadline project when there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find her standing there with a big smile. She greeted me with a smile and asked if she could ask me for a favor. I told her sure and asked what she needed. That's when she shocked me by asking if she could borrow my dog. I honestly thought I'd misheard her. Borrow my dog? Like he was a cup of sugar or a lawnmower. When I asked her to clarify what she meant by borrow, she explained that she'd been feeling really sad lately. She told me she had noticed how happy my dog made me and thought she needed that kind of comfort too. She said she just wanted to have him for about a week or two. I laughed thinking she was joking, but the expectant look on her face made it clear she was dead serious. I apologized and explained that he wasn't a rental, but my pet. I suggested that if she was looking for some dog company, we could go on a walk together sometime instead. Her face immediately changed. The smile disappeared, replaced by a frown and narrowed eyes. She accused me of being selfish, saying it was just for a week. She told me she was really struggling right now and that it would help her so much. I tried to be understanding, telling her that I understood she might be going through a tough time, but that he was my responsibility. I explained that I couldn't just hand him over to someone else, even temporarily. That's when she really laid on the guilt. She claimed I didn't know what it was like to be truly alone. She pointed out that I had my dog all the time and asked if I couldn't just share for once. She told me to have some empathy and just let her have the dog for a bit. I was shocked by how quickly this had escalated. This woman, who I barely knew, was now guilt-tripping me for not letting her take my dog. I apologized again but said the answer was no. I started to offer to recommend some resources that might help her, but she cut me off. She called me a cold-hearted witch and said she had thought I was nice. And with that, she stormed off, slamming her apartment door down the hall. I stood there for a good minute trying to process what had just happened. Did someone really just try to borrow my dog like he was a Netflix DVD? The aftermath has been awkward, to say the least. Now she glares at me every time she sees me in the hallway or parking lot. If we end up in the elevator together, she makes a point of looking at her phone and sighing dramatically. Last weekend, I noticed she'd posted a passive-aggressive Instagram story. We had exchanged social media during one of our earlier friendly encounters. It said, "Some people don't understand what it means to share love when others are hurting. Selfishness is the real pandemic." She even complained to the elderly couple downstairs about me. When they told me about it, they said they thought the whole thing was as ridiculous as I did. Yesterday, I ran into our property manager, who asked if everything was okay. The manager told me that someone had asked about the pet policy and specifically wanted to know if pets could be shared between apartments. Apparently, she was trying to find some loophole to force me to let her borrow my dog. I've now started taking different routes when walking my dog to avoid running into her. I've also warned a few other pet owners in the building about her strange request, just in case she tries the same approach with them. So yeah, apparently I'm a monster for not handing over my beloved dog to a virtual stranger for emotional support. I ended up in construction after 3 years of structural engineering in college. I was the only woman on a job site full of guys who'd been swinging hammers longer than I'd had my driver's license. Fresh out of college, I landed a job inspecting a new commercial building project. My job was to ensure the structural integrity of the entire build. I was there to make sure the building wouldn't collapse once completed. From day one, I felt the skepticism. The side looks when I walked across the site in my hard hat. The sudden silence when I approached groups of workers. Most of the crew eventually warmed up to me, but one older worker who'd been in construction for decades made it his mission to undermine me at every turn. He never liked taking instructions from someone younger, especially a woman. Every day was a battle. I would tell him that support beams needed reinforcement according to updated specifications. He would call me princess and remind me that he had been doing this job since before I was potty trained. He rolled his eyes so much I wondered if his eyeballs would get stuck. Once, while I was explaining safety protocols to workers, he interrupted. He asked the others if they thought I had gotten my engineering degree from Pinterest or Instagram. He said he was betting on Pinterest, adding that DIY videos must be educational. The crew laughed nervously. I smiled and continued my explanation. I wasn't there to win a popularity contest. I was there to do my job and keep everyone safe. For weeks, I documented everything, every inspection, every conversation, every measurement. I kept notes with photos and references to building codes. Then came the foundation pour, one of the most critical phases of any construction project. The older worker was responsible for the rebar placement, which provides strength for the concrete foundation. During my inspection, I noticed something wrong. The rebar spacing didn't match the blueprints. This wasn't a small error, it was a safety concern that could make the entire structure fail. I took photos, measured the problems, and checked my references before saying anything. At the team meeting before the pour, I raised my hand. I explained that we had a serious issue with the rebar placement in sections F through H. The spacing was inconsistent and didn't match the blueprints. According to Regulation 5.3.2, This could compromise the foundation. We needed to fix it before pouring. The older worker's face turned red. He said my claim was ridiculous. He had been doing foundation work longer than I had been alive. The foreman looked concerned and asked if I was sure about my assessment. I nodded. I told him I was positive and offered to show him. I pulled out my tablet with the photos and blueprint specifications. I opened my binder of notes and the regulation handbook. I showed what we were looking at. The blueprints called for 8-inch spacing with double reinforcement at stress points, but what was installed had spacing from 10 to 14 inches with single reinforcement. Based on the load calculations, this could cause foundation cracking within 5 years, especially during freeze-thaw cycles. I showed him the building code section 5.3.2. Foundations for commercial structures this size need specific reinforcement patterns. What was in place didn't meet those requirements. The foreman studied the evidence, then looked at the older worker. He said I was right. This would never pass inspection, and we could face a lawsuit if there was structural failure. This needed to be fixed immediately. The older worker looked angry, embarrassed, and shocked. He never expected to be proven wrong in front of the crew. The foreman said we would need to pull the team off other tasks to fix this before tomorrow. This would set us back at least 3 days. The older worker didn't say a word for the rest of the day. He worked with the crew to correct the rebar placement to my specifications. The tension on site was thick. Next morning I arrived early. I found a cup of coffee on my workstation with a note. It said I had been right. From that day forward, he never questioned my expertise. He started coming to me with questions about complex structural issues. The princess comment stopped. The eye-rolling stopped. When new workers joined who seemed skeptical of me, he would tell them to trust me because I knew my stuff. I earned my place on that construction site by knowing my job better than anyone could question. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.